We are human, we are animals, we crave the ability to be we. I know it's called me undies. We undies might have sounded differently. Right? Is it a disco now?
Yeah, it's the after party, so it's now we go with the flash.
My goal in life is to be a laptop sticker.
Me too.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.
It's a great honor, Mr. Jaffe. It's always nice to be with you.
I'm so happy to be with you. I'm honored.
Thanks for doing this, too. It's a real service to the community.
Thank you for doing this, Joseph, for doing Corona TV in general. And it's your gift to the universe, and it's appreciated.
Very human, and I like that.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're insane!
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to a special edition, a special time of Corona TV. Actually, it's the original time for those of you that have been watching the show since, I don't know, almost about a year ago to the day. It began at 2 p.m. and then I moved it to 12, and who knows what time I may end up settling on. But I'm looking a little pale today, by the way. I wonder why. Well, I might just tell you why in a moment. But first of all, let's just talk about the fact that it is debunking day. It is debunking day. It is a day to debunk myths. And I'm not talking about like one of those, it's a myth, yes. One of those Monty Python-esque or, I don't know, Princess Bride type of moments as well. But it is, what is the myth of Blue Monday? I didn't even have time to research it. Why? Because I want to share something with you, which I don't think anyone knew, but you'll know it right now. This morning, and I'm going to try not to get emotional about it. I got my first vaccine, my first dose of the vaccine. I was able to get a slightly earlier appointment. You know, it was just a well-oiled machine this morning with the National Guard at a drive-through on a runway in East Hartford. And I was able to go and realize that this is the first step towards getting back to maybe not normal, but a new normal where we can hug, we can kiss, we can embrace, and we can be together again. Bob Farnham is here, and he said, "Switch your mic." You mean like that? I knew I forgot something. You mean like that, Bob? So yeah, I just switched the mic. Hopefully, does that sound better, Bob? I hope it does. Tom Morris is here. He is here and happy. My mom is here. She is watching as well. But yeah, so that's why the beard is gone. The beard symbolized maybe hunkering down and just being patient, staying the course. But now the first step in towards being able to get back to life, maybe not as we knew it, but maybe a new life where we can find hope, positivity, and optimism. And if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. Well, let's get on with the show, because today, you know, talking about making lemonade from lemons, an absolutely inspirational person, Julia McCoy, content hacker and founder of Express Writers, but that does not tell the full story, and you will see soon enough. I will leave you hanging for just a while longer. Next week's guests, a little sneak preview: Michael Paterano, Sharon Vinderine, Sandra D. Robinson, and Daniel Gutierrez will be in the house. And then we have a community show on Friday, and we are fully booked into the month of July. Happy birthday, Gail Greenberger, Nicole Ilona, Nikki Golos. Happy birthday to you, David Vanderpool, Stephen Mars. A lot of blasts from the past. Also, Carrie, Craig, Lokesh, Kumar, Abdul, Qayyum, George, Toro. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great day. Well, inspired by my guest today, your soliloquy is called Fate and Failure, and it's something we will be talking about today, no doubt. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe everything happens for a reason? Now, that's a pretty loaded question, which is actually used quite liberally and even superficially. It might even have a place on someone's bingo card, you know, which BS bingo I'm talking about. I believe everything happens for a reason, you'll hear people say, as a badge of pride. Others will use it as a key piece of advice, especially parents to children. Trust me on this one. Let's not even invoke the higher power of a supernatural or religious overlord that pulls our spiritual strings as the master puppeteer. It helps to rationalize and explain away things like the Holocaust or even COVID-19, right? Sure, our revenues have been obliterated, but we got to spend so much quality time with our kids, and our monopoly skills are super sharp. So what does that make us? Does it make us maybe fatalists? And if so, how much are we in control of our own destiny? My guest today spent 21 years in a cult. I don't know if she thinks that things happened or that happened for a reason. And if so, whatever that reason was, surely there were like better shortcuts to get from there to here. I'll tell you what she does believe. Her motto is that there is no failure if you learned and used something from it. Well, I believe in that too. So do most successful entrepreneurs. I'm not sure about the failures though. Perhaps it just means that their time hasn't come yet. It strikes me that the event itself, the actual failure, is meaningless. It's what the event triggers in terms of mindset shift and future action that allows us to find redemptive power from the failure, and in doing so, apply a fresh dose of hope, positivity, and optimism. For starters, the ability not to get into that same position again. That's part of the learning. Bonus, if you can spot it a mile coming the next time round. That is a little bit of resilience for you. The second part is even more powerful. Both the motivation to keep going and the strength to change direction and charter a new course. Now, whether you want to call that a shift or a pivot, it is the utility or use that came out of the failure. That is the tenacity, perseverance, or grit component. Come out of any situation with both resilience and tenacity, and my friends, you are one hell of a fatalist and most likely a winner. And now it's time to talk to a real winner, someone that has lived that learning, someone that not only has learned, but has been able to pivot and to turn that learning into action. Julia McCoy is a serial entrepreneur, content marketing strategist, and a passionate advocate of using content to build a business. She mentors and educates marketers at her brand, The Content Hacker, leads operations at her agency, Express Writers, and she writes books. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's welcome her onto the show. Ms. Julia McCoy, welcome to Corona TV.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Do you prefer Joe or Joseph? I should have asked you this sooner.
I prefer either.
Either. Okay. Well, that was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so, so much. I'm like, I need to record this and replay it on bad days.
Well, luckily for you, it is being recorded.
That's true. It's on YouTube.
It's on, as we learned this week from Burger King, the internet and Google never forget.
True.
Memory like an elephant, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness. I have a t-shirt that says that. The internet never forgets. I should have worn it.
Or elephants never forget. Or elephants on the internet never forget.
Both. Exactly.
So, Julia, you are guest number 218 on this little adventure called Corona TV. And we're going to find out a little bit about you, starting with, forget about the other thing. To me, what's really, really interesting about you, and you're just lucky that I didn't ask you to give us a demonstration. As you can see, I might have rushed things because of the vaccine, but the Photoshop and retouching is, on a scale of 1 to 10 is a solid 0.1. But tell us about your harp playing exploits.
Yes. Oh, that image is priceless. Oh, well, so I had to pick an instrument when I was 12, and I was like, I'm just going to pick the harp. It sounds beautiful. It looks pretty. And whenever I started playing it, it was just, oh, this is another passion of mine, right next to writing. It fit right in there. And then, unfortunately, because I lived in a cult, like everything is taken away from you in that kind of an oppressive environment. So I lost my harp in about a year, bought one again 3 years ago, and I've been reteaching myself how to play it. And it's been such an outlet, such a wonderful outlet for me.
Okay, so like most people might say, I lost my heart, or, my heart got broken. You lost your harp,
Yes.
and your harp basically got broken. First of all, and we're going to talk about the cult. How can we not? But I mean, let's just go back to this point. I'm just going to pick an instrument. There are many instruments to pick. Why the harp?
True. I think it had some semblance to, I grew up on Bible stories. I heard that David played the harp. And so that was in the back of my mind whenever I was thinking, what instrument sounds angelic and beautiful? And I was just like, oh, I think that Bible story from David kicked in. And little did I know how much I'd actually enjoy it. So it was like, it was meant to be.
So now if you could do it all over again, there was no influence from David. And I'm a big fan of him as well, been trying to get him to come on the show for a while now. Would you go back and pick the harp every day?
I have to say I would, especially learning it outside of that environment now. Because what I've learned is, it is a beautiful instrument. It's funny, we have a farm out here in Texas, and we raise chickens. And one thing I've done is I've helped put our chickens to sleep by playing the harp. So like, oh, animals and children, my 6-year-old, falls asleep to the sound of a harp. Oh, this is pretty cool. Okay, I think I'll continue to use this. So it's like my secret weapon.
I want you to know that you can come back anytime and do a demo. Not a demo, just I don't know, will help us to sleep. Which is not to say your whole playing will put us to sleep.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Well, now let's get into the serious stuff. You don't just. I mean, I was just thinking, like, at what point in your life, when you meet someone on your bio, do you say, "Oh, by the way, I was in a cult for 21 years and I escaped it"? I mean, tell us the story, if you will, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Yes. So you want like the story of how, like, from day one, and then we'll just like nutshell it. What do you think? What do your viewers want? Like, how deep should we go?
We can ask them. By the way, do you know that you're the second person who was in a cult on my show? Lisa Cohn, who was in the Moonies cult, told her story. She was at this mass wedding at Madison Square Garden where, I don't know, the Reverend Moon married, I don't know how many thousands of couples. So I'm becoming quite well versed on cults. But in all seriousness, I would love to hear your story. And I guess you can nutshell it as well. But I also want to give you an opportunity to tell your story the way you would want to tell it. So there's no time limit. And Bob asks, by the way, is Corona TV a cult? I don't know. But I do say sometimes that the word cult isn't exactly. The word cult is in culture, but I might rethink, the ability to use the word liberally or frivolously. So, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear your story.
Yes. Okay. So So I was born into all of this. The deep nutshell, I was born into all of this. Unfortunately, I was the daughter of the founder's son, the daughter of the founder's third son. And this was a religious cult. The best way I can describe it today, because there's so many different things that went into it, is if you've ever watched The Handmaid's Tale or read the book by Margaret Atwood, that is what I grew up in. That's fundamentalism. So that's what I grew up in. So I grew up in the real life version of fundamentalism, and it had many names. Christianity was one. Baptist was another, fundamentalist Baptist. So they used a lot of different names down through the generations. So I was meant to carry on the generation. I was meant to be part of the church, be a church ministry leader. I mean, women couldn't speak in the church, couldn't teach. So that would have been a little difficult. But that's what I was meant to be, is basically a puppet and a slave. And I was raised to be that. So if you've ever watched that show, the oppression in fundamentalism is exactly what I went through. And it was like 6 different types of abuse I've now come to learn. And once you label it, like coming out of that environment, once you label it, name it for what it is, that's really powerful and liberating, and it's difficult. It's really difficult to come to terms with the fact that your parents were those people. But, from birth, my sister and I went through it together. There was a lot of oppression. There was a lot of beatings. There was a lot of dress codes. I never wore pants. And that's not to say we walked around pantless. We had long dresses on. I've since learned to clarify that, by the way. I've had people say, so you didn't wear pants? Does that mean you never wore? Now I say, let me clarify that. So long dresses, that was part of the oppression that played in, is women are meant to be silent, wear long dresses, raise babies. And that's a pattern with many cults and many cult leaders. And women and children, especially, like, they bear the brunt of the oppression, because children are they're raised in fundamentalism with the mindset that they're not to be heard, seen, noticed. They have to be silent. And, try telling a 3-year-old to do that for 8 hours. You can't. So there was a lot of oppression and a lot of beatings that happened when I was young. And when I was 21, things were happening. Like, I was being locked in my room, and I was told it was for my safety, which is like a total lie. And there was so much oppression mentally, not so much as beatings, whenever I turned 20. So at 21, that's when I really woke up, and I was like, I have to do something, because the rest of my life, I will be living in this environment. I will be a puppet of the grand puppet master, and I will be very unhappy. And, back at 19, I was contemplating suicide. Like, this was no way to live, being oppressed every single day of your life. And that's what a cult is like. And so at 21, at 19, I got out of that mindset. Thankfully, it was just like my mind turned around. I'm like, okay, I have to live. I have to find a way to live. And then that's when I tapped into my passion for writing. And back at 19, I actually started Express Writers. And it was funny. The only thing that was not taboo in my dad's household was the internet, which is very strange. I don't think they knew the power of the internet, because it gave me freedom and a means to build my business. And that gave me an independent income stream that I was able to use and then get out of the cult eventually at 21 years old in the middle of the night. So they had no idea the power of the internet, or I don't think they would have let me use it. So I found my passion, which was writing, tapped into that. And that was like my alternate reality, and that's something I've since come to see. Tony Robbins, J.K. Rowling, many, many famous people, their trauma actually drove them early on into their passions. And, trauma is never good. You don't want to go through it. But that's a great topic of your show, I think, is what do we turn that into? And for me, I was able to chase my passion because it was my alternate reality. That was how I lived, was through words and stories and, Narnia and all the books that I was allowed to read. Many books were not allowed. So I tapped into that early on, monetized it, used the internet, searched, how do I write for a living? Found Upwork, back then it was Odesk, created a profile, launched my business, and started getting work. And then at 21, I was failing college. I was going to college mostly due to their pressure. And I was getting halfway through a nursing degree and failing miserably because it was not my passion. And then you add to that, you know, you're in a cult, you're hiding that from everyone. Nobody knows what's happening at home. You know, you can't get through college. So halfway through college was when I really tapped into my passion for writing. And then that liberated me. That was how I got out of the cult. I bought a car with cash, packed it up in the middle of the night at 21 years old and escaped. You know, I drove 900 miles. I was like, I have to escape the environment, escape the house, escape the state. I have to get away from this. And I started a new life. And at 21, I was doing things like watching Netflix for the first time, you know, discovering rock music for the first time, all the things that were not allowed, wearing pants for the first time, shedding those long dresses. And is that a good deep nutshell, Joe?
My mind is racing, and I'm going to ask you to clarify a bunch of things. I mean, let's get to the internet last, because I mean that's the most insane. The one thing, you know, the one thing you would have thought that you would not have been allowed to have access to would have been the internet.
Yes.
And it's the one thing that somehow was, you know, it was not kryptonite for you, but it became kryptonite for in terms of keeping you down and suppressed. It was the exact opposite. But but you were studying while you were essentially imprisoned. Right? You were studying. Yes. So you were doing were you allowed to study?
Yes, definitely. In fact, and this is true in many cults, it's homeschooled. That's the environment you're in. So I was homeschooled K through 12. My mom was my teacher, and reading words, stories, that was a big part of how we were brought up. So like we were given a stack of books and told to go read for 5 hours and then write a report. Like those were things after school that we were told to do. So studying was definitely like enforced as part of it all.
Right. And nursing obviously would have not been, it's not like you wanted to do a liberal arts degree majoring in feminism and the overthrowing of cults. That would not have been signed off by the master.
The last thing.
But it's so you're studying, then actually starting to earn an income and buying a car. Were you allowed? Did you have to do that on the side, or were you allowed to earn an income? Were you allowed to buy a car?
So I did all that under the guise of giving back to them. So that's why I was allowed to do it. So for example, all the income I was making as a writer, my dad was siphoning like 60 to 80% of it. And then whenever I bought a car, I had to save up for like 6 months. And my excuse was I have to get to nursing school with this car. So that's why I was allowed to buy it. If it was just, you know, for freedom, like that was not, you didn't have freedom. We had curfews. We were locked in our rooms. We were spied on. He was always outside listening, you know, so I always had to spin it as I'm doing this for the sake of my freedom, but not. It's really for, you know, I had to create a web there to fool him and tell him something else. And nursing, that was something they really saw as good and according to their religion. So that's why I think they allowed me to go to college.
But, and I'm going to get to the but in a second. But first of all, you know, everyone is focused on the emancipation and free Brittany, you know. Mm-hmm. But I would like to start the new hashtag Free Julia. I think that might have been. This is where people should be focusing on. I think Brittany's going to be fine, but let's continue the story because this idea. Because here's what I'm thinking: is you dropped out of college, and I want you to tell the rest of the story because that will get into you know that will get into your book and it will get into a lot of the things that you practice. I'm just wondering, would you? This is where fate comes into it. Would you have dropped out if you were studying your passion, if you were studying writing, if you were studying philosophy, if you were studying Because in a way, what you've done is it's actually created this heroine where you're out there helping people, saying you don't actually, there are ways to be successful by skipping the degree. So I would love for you to just tell the rest of the story and how you kind of took this and generated this book and this thinking and this practice. But then going back to that question I asked earlier, which is, what if you were studying something else? Would you have in fact dropped out? And clearly you wouldn't have skip the degree. So you see how it's so circular. It's like a vicious cycle, and I'm not sure how to stop it.
Yes. I see that train of thought. I'm sure you're not alone. I'm sure others would say the exact same. And so back then, that was, gosh, when did I drop out? Around 2011. So, here's the thing. If I was in getting a writing or a communications or a business degree, which, yes, I do writing, but really I'm good at business. And that's why my books succeed, my brands get clients. And that's what you have to be in this digital era. You have to be good at business. You have to be good at promoting all the things around the actual thing that you love, which is writing, which is sad, but it's the digital era. So back then, if I had graduated with a degree, I don't know if it would still be relevant. And I may still have written skip the degree because of what we're seeing and why I wrote the book, which is we can't hire writers. There are graduates leaving school today, this year, last year. They don't know how to write for an online audience. They're still not being taught. And that's why this book came out. Because even if you get the degree and you don't drop out, is that degree relevant to what you need to know to do what Joseph does, host a show? Did you learn StreamYard in college? Did you learn, how to promote your show on different channels? You probably didn't. And if you did, we need to hear about that college. They need some kudos. So that's really essentially why I wrote the book. Is there is such a big, the conversation needs to be had more around, is college today even relevant to the digital skill set? And what we have found in the last 10 years is that it's not. But, and this is what we teach in the book, but going back to what you asked, Joseph, about, what caused me to drop out in that story. So I wasn't doing what I love. And that is part of the pathway in the book. It's 4 L's: love, learn, labor, and then level up. So those 4 L's. So the first thing you have to do is find out what you love. And for me, whenever I was in getting a degree that I was, number one, terrible at, I would have made a horrible nurse. I was the person, reading the needle and what you're supposed to put in it, reading it incorrectly. I was that person. Don't trust me in nursing. Nope. And I didn't love it. It was, it's high pressure. You're on your feet. I have so much respect for nurses and doctors.
If you were giving me the vaccine today, it would not have ended well for me.
You probably would have got a lethal dose. Yeah, exactly. So,
okay, so number one is love, right?
Yes.
Number 2 is learn.
Yes. And then number 3 is labor, and number 4 is level up.
All right. So but expand a little bit on each one. All right. The love what you do. Now, by the way, my mantra coming out of this this COVIDian dystopian, a different dystopia to the one you grew up in, is my simple formula is love what you do, be true to yourself, and stay the course. That's my formula. I'm now going to adapt it to say love, learn, labor, and level up, L4.
Joseph.
but give us an example. So love, I get, right? Love what you do.
Yes.
Right? Life is short. And for you, 21 years of your life was held back. And then you got to experience a different kind of love. But love is, I get love. How do you define learn? Labor, I kind of feel, I think I might know, but I'd like to hear it from you first.
Yes. So love, like you said, that's super clear, right? Find out what you love doing. And one thing we've noticed about that, and I write about this in the book, is that personality test can really help you figure out what you love doing, not just what you're good at, but what you love, because it's a blend of both. You have to blend talent and passion. Those two things have to go together. You have to have a talent for it, a real skill that you can build, and then a passion. So the second one is learn. And that's where we're talking about all the alternate things you can do besides college that, number one, don't cost as much. Lots, thousands of dollars in savings, don't put you in debt. And then number two, help you get close to a mentor in your industry that is actually more of a practitioner than that person teaching the outdated lectures in that textbook. So, theory is dying in the digital world. Like what we learn in those textbooks is often not applicable to real life. And that's not true for medical, legal, financial industries. Like you still need to use the textbook.
But I mean, I was going to say, by the way, yesterday I did a little pop-up session. I teach social media strategy at West Virginia University. And I sent a note to all my students and I said, look, you got a textbook and you're learning about all this stuff. But what happened this week with Burger King on International Women's Day? I'm like, this is your textbook. Life is your textbook. Yes. And so I just put a little pop-up lesson for them just to say, let's learn from what happened unfolding in front of our very eyes, and it is kind of like, what do they call it? The school of hard knocks, but it's really the essence of street smarts versus book smarts.
Yes, so true. So that's how we're recommending that you learn. That's the second part. So the learn is not like your traditional, let's go to a textbook, take a degree. And of course, it's called skip the degree. So you can obviously tell that. And then the third one, once you find that industry practitioner, that's what we recommend. If you're going to build a digital skill set, find that industry practitioner. Then the third one is labor. And the last one is level up. So without labor and just like getting your hands dirty, you can't really learn the skill. Like you sending your students that tweet is perfect. That's using the tool. They have to go to Twitter to go read it. They're actually laboring a little bit. Like there is some work involved in the actual field using Twitter. So that labor mindset and that word and that third L really applies to getting your hands dirty and just learning and laboring, because you learn by doing oftentimes, especially in the digital world.
And the 10,000 hour theory, do you subscribe to that? Does it have to be 10,000? Can it be 9,997?
Yes. Or 9.
9.
I mean, depends on the skill.
That is true.
10,000. No. Yes.
And then level up, which is exciting. Define or tell us what you mean by leveling up.
Yes. So leveling up, and this is what's really cool about the digital skill set. That's where you charge more and you become more. So it's not just you're now making more revenue, but you're also working in your purpose and you're doing things you truly love. And maybe you've delegated or you've outsourced the rest. So you're walking in your gifts, you're leveled up, and then you're making the revenue goals that you want to hit. You charge more. And sometimes you have to overcome mindset limitations to be able to do all that. And one of the best examples is actually from my life. So 10 years ago, when I started in content, I was earning around $15 per article, anywhere from I started at $2. Like that's misery, right? A whole article for $2. But today, if I were to bill a private client, that would look like $500 to $1,000. So that's an example of just that's almost 100 times of leveling up. So you can do that in the digital industry. And that's what is truly magic about this alternate pathway that I'm trying to share in this book. You can go so far in this digital era. I've done it and I was a dropout, like we were just talking. And, that story is repeated. We interviewed about 40 people to write this book. And we have people that love their degree, have a perspective on it. And we wanted that. We wanted both sides. My co-author has a doctorate. She has 2 degrees. So we involved all the perspectives. And it's just really cool how that came together in this book.
I think there's something really powerful in this framework. And there's a lot powerful, there's something, there's so much that's powerful. And I want to go back and I loved your alter ego on Instagram. You talk about alternate reality. That's another thing I want to ask you. But femme entrepreneur, which
Yes.
I love. It's brilliant. But I was thinking, as a woman, this is, this month, this week, today, we are focused not just on, celebrate women, but celebrate the fact that women are not, there are two parts, are still not compensated and treated the way that they deserve to be treated in the workplace, in life, for sure. But then there's this other idea of, and we heard it from Dr. Alison Escalante, who was on the show, of self-compassion, being able to actually look in the mirror and say, I am worth more, I deserve more, I'm going to get more, rectifying the dystopia of not just The Handmaid's Tale, but quite frankly, sometimes the reality that we live in today. And I wonder, why Level Up is, I feel, so powerful is you're saying it's not just enough to, you're never going to be more if you don't charge more and if you aren't paid more. It's not about being superficial, materialistic. It's damn well about saying, if I'm worth it, then pay me like I'm worth it, period.
Well said. I couldn't add anything else. So well said. That is it.
No, that's why I think this idea of not just leveling up in terms of, your credentials and your capabilities, but actually saying you need to be able to charge more. And I guess there's no shame or embarrassment in being able to charge more. And probably if you don't charge more, you'll never get more.
Yes. That's actually one of the stories in our book is this coach. She's a female. She hired a coach to help her get out of her own mindset. And I think her story is called like why and how I 900 times my prices. She was playing like so small, and it's true. So true what you said. Sometimes it's us, the female, in our perspective, we don't think we're worthy of charging for more. And I have people in my coaching community that I encourage them. I kick their butts, like, go ask for more. You are worth it. You're getting just as much results, if not more, than that person sitting next to you in the office. And it's all about the results. It's not about, what you identify with. It's, if those results are there, you should be getting paid the same.
So, it's funny because your life is so rich and complex, and different. And then it's almost like, and today we're going to talk about content strategy. And then you're like, how about how I grew my business through content from 0 to 4.3 million in just 7 years? That doesn't sound too boring to me. I'm taking notes. Can you give me some tips? How might I grow my show and level up through content hacking and working with a Julia McCoy? What advice could you give me? I like that. 4.3 million, I'll take it. That doesn't sound boring.
You're like, I'll take that headline.
That's the power of a headline, right?
Yes, well, it's true. No, it's crazy because so many headlines are clickbait, but that one is not. That is 100% true. But no, that's a great question. And Content Hacker, which is my brand, that actually means growth through content. And that's, to me, I see that as oftentimes a lost art. And I know you've had another guest on your show, Mark Schaefer. And it's funny, our age difference, right? Like I just turned 30 and I won't say his age out of respect. In fact, I forget, but you
can say
it. I forget, but he's much, much older. Well, that doesn't sound nice, but much older. We'll still
32.
And how he thinks aligns so much with how I think. And, overall, though, I think it is a lost art. What it really comes down to is a few simple things. It's investing. So it's, being unafraid to say, as much as I will charge my client, that's what I need to. It's not like a tit for tat thing, but you do need to be putting your money where your mouth is, basically. So investing in content in a way that will exponentially grow your brand. I see people still asking me, well, what's the difference between your copywriters at Express Writers versus a $5 Fiverr article writer? And they're not willing to take the plunge and invest. And the difference is when you invest in someone who knows how to get growth, that's becoming a partnership that'll grow your brand exponentially. So what it comes down to is that's part of it, a mindset thing, being able to invest. And then, I love it. I love what Tom said. That is awesome. Can we clap for Tom? That is amazing. And then the other part of it is
He's gonna probably start charging me for he takes notes. Don't.
Sorry, Joseph. No, it's what we're celebrating, right? And so the other part of it, besides the mindset and investing more, is having a clear strategy. So when is content going out? Is it strategic? Is it matching the interest of what my readers have? And what's really cool is that there's so many tools out there. BuzzSumo is one of my favorites that help you uncover what the trends are right now. So if you go to BuzzSumo, and it's funny because 2 hours ago, I just came out of coaching my students about this. So it's fresh off the press. If you go to BuzzSumo and you look at their analyzer and you type in consulting, marketing, whatever your topic is, you will see the most shared, the highest engagement rates in the world, on the internet pop up. And that kind of data, it doesn't lie. Now, sure, some people have inflated it. They've bought fake shares from Fiverr. And you can usually spot that. If it's the headline that just doesn't make sense, or it's obviously created by a company, why we grew our client to 200%. That's been inflated. But otherwise, the data there in BuzzSumo does not lie. So if you use tools like that and you study the highest engagement rates in your industry, and then you recreate those topics with your perspective, that's one strategy alone that will get people tuning in to your blog, your newsletter all the time, because you're creating content that's data backed. That research has shown using those tools that people already care about and they're engaging with. So I think I forget who said, don't reinvent the wheel. So you don't want to copy, but you want to use these tools like BuzzSumo to uncover what people care about. Don't copy that post, recreate it with your perspective. And that's one strategy that will just doing that consistently, even once a month, twice a week, or twice a month. And once a month, twice a week is quite a bit of traction there. But just doing it consistently at a number that won't break you can really skyrocket your brand. And I think Mark Schaefer and I, we have the same motto. It's so funny. I've blogged every week for 8 years. And I think he's blogged every week for 10 years. So I'm trying to catch up to him. But
So I'm gonna try and summarize what you're saying, because I think there are a couple of nuances that are very important. And the backdrop for this is, my wife started a business on Instagram called Things I Love 203. So I give her fake sponsorship of the show sometimes. There you go. That's their logo. So Things I Love 203. And she's, and the thing is, there are lots of levers, right? The one lever is promoting a post and being able to get, to expand the visibility of people that see it. Another lever is followers, to be able to grow loyal followers. And this is all legit, right? All legit investment. This is through Instagram or whatever. So the more people that are subscribed to the account or follow the account, the more people see the content, etc. Then there are hashtag generators and how to create, that's another lever. But what you're talking about is investing in the actual content, really understanding, is it 3 images or 4 images? It's the writing part more so than the actual image. Is that right? It's, even in context of Instagram, but what you're saying is it's investing in actually being better content creators. And chicken and egg, that comes before the marketing of the egg. No, that comes before, right? You've got to create and I'll just say one more thing, and then shut up and have you kind of reconcile, because there is a bit of a catch-22, which is if a tree falls in the forest, right, and no one's there to see it, does make a sound. So there's a different chicken and a different egg, which is, do you focus on creating a magnificent piece of content that no one's going to see, or do you focus on maximum exposure and then let with mediocre content, or at least, and then allow the content to get better over time?
That is the $1 million question. That is a great question.
It's the $4.3 million question.
Excuse me. Let me quote my own headline here. Yes. Yes. Well, I think, if you think about it, we all have to start somewhere. So that's the thing, right? Like, we can't start with imaginary money. I mean, I started with no funding. I started with $75 in the bank account, literally, living in a cult, having everything siphoned away from me to grow my father's church. So $75 was all I had when I started Express Writers. And what I did is just what Joseph was talking about. Like, I started out with the best I could do, which back then was like, okay. It was okay. I look back on it now and I'm like, ooh. So that if that's where you start, if that's where you can start, that's so much better than not doing anything at all, because that sometimes is all you need to get off the ground. And just like those 4 L's, it's leveling up. So sometimes it's level 1, level 0 is where you might start. And then it's just slowly going up the ladder, slowly paying more for content as your clients pay you more for what you're good at, putting that right back into better and better content. Like this year, actually, our entire content marketing strategy at Express Writers is going back through our 1,300 blogs and updating all of them. Like, we are not publishing any new content. We have crap that needs to get fixed. So that's where we're investing our time and our money that our business makes, putting it right back into making our content better. So like, that's the thing here. Like, just like you were saying, it is a catch-22. But if you think about it, instead, like going up the ladder and leveling up as you make more, put that back into content, put that back into what you created at level 0 that maybe just wasn't so good, and make that better. And then over time, what you'll have is a thriving brand. That's what's happened to us. I was telling someone in an SEO group today, they were like, SEO content is dead. And I'm like, we have 100,000 visitors a month. And all of those visitors we've earned completely through SEO content. Like, we don't do a single ad. We've never paid for a position in Google. We've earned every position in 10 years. And today that brings in 100,000 visitors a month. And just like Joseph was saying, 4.3 million in 7 years. So, you can have huge dividends if your brand is positioned correctly through content. And if you need to start somewhere, start with level 0 and then just keep leveling up from there.
How do you determine which level you're at? I mean, I know it's a bit of a self-reflection or an introspection, but how do you know? I mean, and probably the worst thing is to think you're at a higher level than you actually are. So is there a levelator, if you will, that will tell you which level you're at?
Oh, what a great question. Yes. For what I've talked about with that question is you need a good accountability partner. And sometimes that looks like a coach, a mentor, a friend. Incidentally enough, for me, that was actually my husband. He was like, back in the day when I was probably at like level 1, I thought I was at level 8 or 10. I thought I was writing pretty good content. And then he's publishing it. He's helping me edit it a little bit. And he's like, there's a lot of typos in this. The headline is really wonky. You're missing some images. And I had a significant reality check, and I was like, okay, I'm playing at level 1 right now. So you need people in your life. And sometimes, my husband actually is an SEO expert. That's where he came from. Sometimes you need to hire the expert and have them tell you what's wrong with your content. If you're not coming from a content perspective, because not all of us are, overnight content strategists. That's a skill you have to build. So that's a really great question. Sometimes it's hard to self-assess the levels you're at. So that's where I would get a practitioner, a coach, a mentor. If it's a coach, make sure they're a practitioner first, because there's so many coaches in name only.
I was
they'll tell you the truth.
I was actually in a room in Clubhouse earlier, and it was all about the best advice you ever got. And one person said, I mean, this just blew me away. They said, never take advice from someone that you wouldn't actually want to pay money for said advice.
Oh,
which is like, that like blew my mind. So it's like,
wow.
If someone's dispensing advice and you wouldn't actually want to pay for that advice, then how, and I was trying to like understand it better, I guess, but it was like, it sounded a little profound, not going to lie.
Yes, I would agree. Wow.
So this is interesting because, the word, I'm sure you've heard many of these acronyms, fail, first attempt in learning. And what I found really interesting is when I put it into the backdrop, for some reason, first learning came out, which is exactly your point, right?
Yes.
It's learn and then act and then figure out how to retool. So I guess, and you've just said it from a content standpoint, right? You've just said that you've got to be able to take criticism. You've got to be able to go back and not be oblivious or sweep it under the rug, but go back and almost embrace the lower level, embrace the incompetence, embrace the naivete, right? And use it to fuel, yourself, knowing how far you've come and how much you've leveled up, I guess.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, gratitude. I'm such a big fan of like pausing and, having moments where you're just like nothing but gratitude, no matter where you're at. Like the small wins, celebrating everyone is so important.
I heard another thing as well today, which is I think you'll love, which is, when to hire people when you're losing money doing it yourself.
That's good.
That's money, right? That's money, big time, because it actually shows that when to invest in yourself is when you're actually doing it yourself. You're not at the level you maybe thought you were, or maybe but more importantly, your talents and skills could be used elsewhere if that were outsourced, or if an external partner were brought in. But enough about advice. I want to go back to, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to talk about both of the books. And I think Anne wanted to know, does your book come in audio? My mom wants to listen to it if possible, but there are many books, right? So let's talk about both of them. Let's talk about, first of all, Woman Rising, a true story. This is the story of your life in the cult.
Yes. And both books have Audible version, this one and Skip the Degree. This book, Woman Rising, I narrated the audiobook and it's been out for about a year. You can find it on Amazon. Unfortunately, Skip the Degree, Audible they delayed Mark Schaefer's book as well. They are delaying all the audiobooks. So Skip the Degree, the audiobook is there, but it's not fully out there. I hear it's available in different countries though, which is interesting. So you might still find it.
All right. So Woman Rising, a true story. In addition to the book, and this book is available in audio form, there's also, and the website is Woman Rising Project. Tell us what the Woman Rising Project is.
Yes. So this is my 501c3 cause associated with the book. And I'm just so excited about this. And what's interesting, the 501c3 cause just got approved. So we are now that legal institution as a 501c3. Yes, about a month ago. So that was really exciting. But this I launched when I launched the book. And my goal with the Woman Rising Project, it's a long-term goal. So it's not something that'll probably, immediately get funded and then we do big things. It's probably going to be a slow and steady, like the turtle versus the hare. But my goal is to try to transform lives in the lives of specifically women and children that have been through religious cults and abuse that's hidden at home, because that's what I went through. I can speak to that so much. I know the traits of, like, my father is basically it just boils down to he's a massive narcissist. I know these traits. And so my goal is to help other people that have been through it, are in the middle of it still, and it's not being recognized, help those people find freedom. And that is why I launched that cause. And it's definitely, it's a huge undertaking. So it's just a slow partnership with the right nonprofits to help us find those people. And then it's spreading awareness, creating content that brings awareness to what's happening.
And I want to ask you just two final questions about that part of your life. Actually, this is from my wife. She said, did you always dream of escaping?
What a good question. Yes, actually, I did. It was funny. Like, my older sister, she didn't really. And whenever I brought it up to her, though, she kept me strong. So she never dreamed of it. I think she was ready to submit and live a life there. But the minute I brought it up at 21 years old, I was like, do you want to get out of here? She was like, yes. And then she kept me strong when I wavered in the next few weeks because I was feeling guilty. I was feeling obligated, all the things that victims feel when they're about ready to break out of these situations. But when I was 14, like I packed a bag, hid it under my bed with clothes. My mom found it. She was like, are you thinking of getting out of here? I was like, no. Why is it here? I don't know. So my whole childhood, I was dreaming of escaping. That was definitely, yes. It's funny to think back because I don't think that's a new question. I don't think that's one I've thought about, but it was definitely in my heart that my whole childhood.
Where is everyone today? The rest of your family, are they still there?
So my older sister, I took her with me, brought her in my car. We packed up everything. We left in the middle of a Thursday night around midnight. And at the time I had two little siblings that were stuck in this. And at the time they were about 6 and 8. And today they would be like 13 and 10. And what's really sad is I've called CPS, I've called the Attorney General in Pennsylvania, I've called the police. This is one reason I wrote the book. None of those entities listen to me because there are statutes of limitation in Pennsylvania that actually prohibit the victim from getting anywhere in terms of putting that abuser in jail. So like, there's nothing I can do legally to stop him right now. We'd have to do some rogue justice, which I can't do. So that's one reason I launched this book, was to spread awareness. And, my hope is one day they turn legal age and they read it and they realize like they can break out too.
Well, I hope they're watching you right now on the internet, and that the powers that be still haven't figured out that the internet, the power of the internet. And I'm pretty sure that they'd be just so super proud of you. And not just the trail that you've blazed, but the one that you continue to blaze. We started off, and my soliloquy was about things happening for a reason. Do you look back at 21 years of being, starting at a disadvantage, starting so far behind? Do you look back and say it happened for a reason, or you just like, screw that, something forward?
My angry self that's like hates to see victims in trauma is like the second part for sure. But my better judgment is like, this definitely did happen for a reason. I don't think I would be where I am today if I grew up in a normal life. I was driven really early to seek my passion, and that became so important to me. It was more important than life. And this environment of trauma, pushed me towards that. So what that did for me was I sought out my passion really early in life. And then I acted without self-doubt because it was literally, I had nothing to lose chasing my passion. And that's where I see whenever I teach, coach through the Constant Hacker, I see a lot of people that are double my age sometimes. They're still stuck with self-doubt. And I think that's one thing, the benefit, you never want to go through that. But the benefit I can take today that I've learned from is that it definitely created this, it just eradicated doubt from my system because I was like, I have nothing to lose.
Well, now I'm applauding you. And I think the message is find your passion, preferably without the help of a cult. But the reality is find your passion. And whatever it is in life, whether it's adversity or whether it's, quite frankly, privilege, we don't choose whether we're born into privilege or adversity, but we can choose to pursue our passion and embrace that and use it for good. And that's what you've done. And that leads to, the second book, Skip the Degree, Save the Tuition, which is, I see now is it's less about being able to say, hey, let's disrupt and disintermediate colleges and education, and more about, again, that same message, which is find your passion, and if necessary, shortcut your way to success because life is short.
Yes, 100%. That is what this is. It's the alternate pathway to college. And what this came from, I wasn't going to write this book until, taking it on was a huge endeavor, because I knew the data, the research, the things you have to get right when you take on this kind of controversial topic. So I wasn't going to write it till 2022. And then over COVID, actually, last year, we had so many applicants apply to our writing agency, because you can work from home, right? The remote environment became really hot and necessary, in fact. So we had many applicants. Some of them were evicted from a job. Some of them lost their job. And then many of them were graduates that had just gotten their degree and they were looking for work, and it was hard to find work. And what we saw was that they didn't have the skills necessary for us to be able to hire them. They were missing that key skill set, and the massive amount, we had hundreds more applicants in a month over last year. And the percentage just went so far down of the people that we could hire. So I was like, we have to launch this book a lot sooner and teach people how to go pursue their passion and then monetize a skill set out of that without, sometimes you're paying a lot of money for something that may not always be relevant to what you're doing day to day in the digital world. So I was like, we have to get this book out sooner. And thankfully I had an amazing co-author to take this on with me, Dr. Ai Zhang. And so she wrote chapter 1, where she brings in all the data and not just, the irrelevancy factor in schools, but she talks about things like mental depression happening because students are pushed to get that A when it's not necessarily in their best interest, and they would thrive more if they didn't have all of that pressure. So she talks about that part of it all and tons of crazy data. And then I bring in the next 3 chapters. The second chapter talks about all the myths around making money. Like, you can't just be an overnight YouTube millionaire, and all of the scams in different markets. So I talk about that. And then chapter 3 and chapter 4 is all about the 4 L's, the pathway of love, learn, labor, level up. Yeah,
there is so much nefarious and opacity in play. The quote that I chose for you today, and it actually connects the two. Zealots are rarely ever weakened by disbelievers. In fact, they are encouraged by them. And I think what I take away from this is, move to the light, focus on the light, focus on the passion. That's what will steer you. And so it's less whether it's about pushing off against the college degree or pushing off even against the cult and trying to change. You are basically the quintessential water that moves around the rock versus beating down the rock.
Yes.
Keeping moving, keeping flowing, and moving forward. So, Julia, this was Mark Schaefer again. Score 1 for the laptop sticker. That's what I say. You've been watching Corona TV. This is Hop playing Julia McCoy, content hacker, founder of Express Writers. Subscribe to her channel, youtube.com/Julia McCoy. And no doubt you're going to see more inspiration. I'm sure a lot of content hacks as well. You can follow her on Twitter, definitely on Instagram at FemEntrepreneur. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Find out more about her at Express Writers. Buy the book. 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 And by the way, before I go, I just wanted to say, Anne says, I want to help you find your siblings. If you accept the help, it's your decision. The story breaks my heart. Same with my mom. So, someone's, take that for what it's worth. Anne has become a bit of a regular on the show as well. But Julia, 2 final words, yours and Chuck Norris. So what do you want to say before we sign off with Chuck Norris?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was an honor and a joy. You're an amazing host. I think I should leave it at that. You gave me the spotlight and asked some of the best questions I've been asked. So that's how I'll end.
I appreciate it. And so we'll just let Chuck Norris, in fact, say the final word.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
There you go. Let's head on to, by the way, Zoom after show. Come and hang out with Julia if you have questions.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at coronatv.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.